UMKC had developed some really interesting intellectual property and patents around biometrics. As I was finishing up my previous company, which we sold in 2009, I stayed with that company for 2 more years. My timeline was coming up. So as I was finishing, I went and talked to a number of different people who sat at the crossroads of technology and entrepreneurship and said, hey, what's next? And my core expertise is in software and mobile and wireless, imaging, sensors, and someone said, hey, you should go talk to this professor at UMKC named Dr. Reza Derekshani. He's doing some really interesting things around imaging and biometrics. So I went down there, talked to him, and ended up finding out about what he was working on, and focused from where they were looking at into more mobile biometrics using cell phones to capture the blood vessels in the whites of the eye, and then doing a unique identification off of that. Yeah. So I specifically was looking for something with very large market, something that had IP and patent protection behind it, something that was a pure software play that really kind of from scratch. I love that early stage. I love the thousands of questions with unknown answers. For me, it's fun. So finding something that had good patent protection, good IP, highly scalable, pure software play, preferably in the mobile and wireless space, and this hit it to the T. One of the challenges I think the universities have, that if they could solve this problem, they would greatly accelerate the transfer of innovation, and is that their intellectual property restrictions. So if I want to go and do a research project with a university, they get to maintain all rights to that intellectual property. So I'm paying them to develop something for my company, yet they own it. That's a very hard thing for companies to be able to get around. So if they could figure out how to do contract research better, engage the commercial entities around them, and leverage the intellectual property they have internally, I think they would see a lot more money flowing into the universities, a lot more students working on real-world problems, a lot better synergistic relationship. But given a very antiquated and rigid structure they have around intellectual property, it's very difficult to engage universities in continuous ongoing research. Where EyeVerify is interesting is really around the mobile-centric environment, right? So people want to live life on and through their mobile devices. Google Fiber isn't just about the landlines coming in, but it's about ubiquitous connectivity, whether you're wired or wireless. So in that mobile world, being able to authenticate validate you are who you say you are in a manner that's really secure, usable, very scalable, and very low cost to deploy. So we are very synergistic in kind of Google's desire to make all things connected. So when we are connected to our device, we need to know who's holding the device to allow certain things to happen. So really by Google Fiber, we often think is landline, but really it's not just landline. It's ubiquitous connectivity, whether it be wired or wireless. The Midwest has a couple of great things going for it. One, the entrepreneurial circles are fairly tightly knit, so we all know each other fairly well. We know who's doing what. We know who's got what kind of expertise. We have a great university system. When you think about this, kind of a 3 or 4 state region, a lot of great academic and research-oriented institutions. So when you compare kind of the entrepreneurial mindset of say, hey, so there are big problems, and how do we kind of think big and audaciously, and you've got some really strong researchers that are solving some really hardcore problems, and you put those two together, you can solve some interesting problems. So by nature of being fairly open, from being in the Midwest, being fairly close-knit, I think we've got a lot of opportunity. I think in particular looking at what we have in this region for healthcare and life sciences, a lot of the biotechnologies, whether it be NBAF over at Kansas State University, or this various animal health corridor we often refer to, and just basic technology. I think we've got a lot of those core skill sets right here.